We will see this kind of a screen when Arch is ready for installation. Let's make sure that we have an IP address and we are able to ping some IP in the internet. So let me type IPAS. I have a DHCP server, so I have an IP address here. Let me ping the gateway. My gateway is 192.168.122.1. Let me put count 2. Yeah, I'm able to ping the gateway. Let me ping an IP address on the internet. Count 3. Once our network setup is ready, or we are able to access the internet, let's run pacman sy. So this will sync the repositories. And let me wait for the extra repository. It's very slow. Let me do Control C and let me set a password for root. I'll access this VM over SSH, and I'll change the mirror list. Let me ping the VM. And SSH the VM with the IP address that I have here, 192.168.122.147. Answering yes, and I'm giving the password that I have set. Okay, I have a mirrorless file that is pretty fast, so let me get it from my host machine. pacman.d mirror list. Let me copy this and cpec pacman.d mirror list to a backup file, the mirror list backup. Let's see, I'm going to replace the content of this mirror list with the content that I have, and let me run pacman sy. As you can see, it is so fast. After syncing the repositories, let me check the partitions. Let me run lsblk to see the block devices, and I have a dev VDA disk here which I'll be using for the operating system. I'll create a logical volume partition here for a root disk, and /var and maybe /opt, and then this is let me check if it is UEFI compatible. So let me run sys firmware EFI wars. Yeah, that's present. Okay, so this is EFI compatible, and I'll create an EFI partition, and then I'll create a logical volume. Okay, so to create partitions, I'm using fdisk dev VDA. In your case, it can be SDA or HDA or something else. This is a brand new disk. In fact, this is a VM, so I can delete anything in the disk. So let me print the partition table using P, and there is nothing. So let me create a new partition by typing n, and I'm creating a primary partition number 1, first sector, and let me give 512 MB for the boot partition or EFI partition. And yes, partition 1 is created and the type is by default Linux, so I'm going to type T to change the partition type. I can type capital L to see all the available partition types. One moment. Okay, so I can type capital L to see all the available partition types. I want to use an EFI partition, so I can type EF, and I have created a EFI partition, and I'll have to create LVM partition as well. Default is P, partition number is 2, and first sector by default, and I'm going to type, I'm going to press enter here. I'm not going to give any numbers because I just want one logical volume. It's not one logical volume, one physical volume, and I'll have to change the type to LVM, partition number by default 2, and capital L, and for LVM I'll have to type 8E, and to make the changes, write out the changes to the disk, type W. So my partition table has been altered. Let me type part probe LSBLK. I can see there is a 512 MB partition, and there is another partition for LVM, and for the EFI partition I'm going to format it mkfs.fat and format 32 dev VDA1. This can be different in your case. I'm not going to create a swap partition, which I can do it easily later. And for LVM I'm going to create a physical volume, pv create dev VDA1 VDA2. This is my physical volume, and then vg create, let me head. So the syntax is vg create, give a name for the volume group, and then enter the physical volume name. So in my case it is vg create. I'm going to use arch vg and then dev vda2. So this volume group has been created. Let me run pvs, pvscan or pvs to see the physical volume, and vgs to see my volume group. So I have created a arch vg volume and 19.5 GB space. I'll have to create 2 or 3 logical volumes. Let me create 3 logical volumes, one for root and one for opt and one for var. To create a logical volume, lv create, let me get the help screen, maybe head. So syntax is lv create and then specify the size and specify the volume group. So lv create capital L, and I'm going to give 1 GB, and I'm going to give a name var lv var -lv, and then the volume group name arch vg, and 1 GB for opt lv arch vg. And for root partition I'm going to use 100% free space and root lv arch vg. So I've created 3 logical volumes. First logical volume is of 1 GB size, second one is the same for opt, and the third is my root volume, which takes up 100% of the free space. So let me run lvs to see the logical volume space, logical volume size, opt lv, root and var lv. So let me format the logical volumes mkfs.ext4, dev mapper archvg root lv mkfs ext4. I'm going to format it. You can use any format. Dev mapper archvg opt var. Okay, so let me run lsblk to see the logical volumes. I have var, opt and root. Now I'll have to mount them and then install the packages required for Arch. So let's make sure that there is nothing in /mnt directory. Let me mount dev mapper arch vg root lv to mnt and create mnt opt mkdir mnt var mount dev mapper archvg var, and I'm mounting it to /mnt var mount dev mapper archvg optlv to mnt opt. So I have mounted the partitions. So let's make sure that the partitions are mounted properly. And now to install Arch applications, let me run packstrap /mnt, where I want to install these groups: base, linux firmware, vim, and let me install network manager as well. This will take some time. And if you see this kind of an error, failed to commit transaction, invalid or corrupted packages, you can run pacman -s arch linux keyrings. Well, let me search for it. Keyring. Okay, so let me run pacman -s arch linux keyring and press enter. So this will install the latest Arch Linux GPG keys, and let's rerun the packstrap command. So this will resume from where it stopped. As you can see, Arch is checking package integrity, and that's true. So the installation is successful, and let's generate a fstab file using gen fstab -u mnt, and let's see the content here, and let's redirect it to /mnt etc fstab, and let's not override the file, let's append to the file. That's fine if we are redirecting with a single arrow or 2 arrows, that's fine. And we are good to chroot into the system, arch chroot, and let's chroot into /mnt. here inside the operating system. Now let's generate the locale. Let's edit that locale file. Since we've installed Vim, let me use Vim hc locale.gen, and let me search for enus, and let me write up, okay, enus, and I have uncommented this line en underscore us. This is the locale that I want to use, and let's run locale hyphen gen, and the language change is effective now. That's good. And let's see hostname. Okay, there is no file. Let me Arch Linux etc hostname. I've set the static hostname here. And another important file, since we have used LVM, we have to edit this file mk initcpio.conf, and let's go to hooks. In this hooks, let's add LVM to here. Since we have installed since we have set up LVM, let's add this to the hooks, and let's install LVM2 to package. This is important, otherwise the system will not load the root file system. You should see a successful message here. If you see any errors here, your operating system will not boot properly. So let's install grub and EFI bootmgr, these two packages, and create a directory for, okay, let's make sure that /boot is present, but we don't have an EFI directory here, so let's create it, boot EFI, and let's mount our VDA1, the EFI partition that we created, onto this new directory. So mount dev VDA1 in my case. Let me mount it to EFI, and we'll have to install the EFI files using grub install, and let me give target is equal to x86 hyphen EFI, and bootloader ID is equal to grub EFI directory is equal to /boot EFI. Sorry, enter. Installation finished and no errors reported. Let me create the grub configuration file also, grub mk config, and let me generate the redirect the output to /boot grub.cfg. So it has generated the grub configuration file, so we are kind of good here. And let me set up a root password, passwd, and I'm entering my password, and let me create a new user also. New user, ls home. We have a home directory for the new user, and let me add this user to the wheel group, and then audio video storage, these groups, new user. Okay, so there is a space. Okay, and now let me set a password for the new user. Okay, optionally I can install a graphical user interface, which I'm not going to do that at the moment. And let me give this sudo user the privileges to execute all commands by running vsudo. Before that, let me see. Okay, vim is my editor. Vsudo, I'm running okay, vsudo. Okay, sudo will have to install sudo pacman s sudo. Yes. Oops. Run vsudo and go to the line where it says wheel and just uncomment this. And if you would like to give the user the privileges to execute all commands without giving the password, you can uncomment this line. Let me show this line numbers. You can uncomment line number 117. I'm going to uncomment 114, and then I'm going to write and quit. This user will be able to execute all commands. And let me see if I've installed network manager. Yes, I've rebooted the machine and it is loading the init RAM disk. It's good, and now it is showing the login prompt, so I have to enter new user and my password. Let me make sure that I have an IP address. I don't have an IP address here. Let me run. Okay, let me switch to root. Systemctl status network manager. Oh, I mean, I didn't enable this. Systemctl enable. Now network manager. Do I have an IP? I have an IP. Oops. Okay,